What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode. Before we go on, I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic, and the player ratings and potentials of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips. This is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those of you out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those of you out there just want a few recommendations on what players to sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. So in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, we are going to take a look at the Europa League specialists. Yes, no team has won Europa League more than Sevilla. They've won it 6 times in total, and it was a span, I think it was 14, 15 and 16, where they won it 3 years in a row. The only team to have ever done that in the competition's history. They're a 4.5-star team with a starting budget of around 33 to 34 million pounds, but their objectives in the first season are very tough indeed. Reached the final of the Copa del Rey, finished in the top 4 of La Liga, and reached the final of the Champions League as well. Yeah, this is an expectant board, to say the very least. Now, Sevilla this season under Julian Lopetegui did finish in the top 4. They're back in the Champions League for next season after a 4th placed finish. But it's very hard to maintain a top 4 team in La Liga because of the fact that Barca, Real and Atletico Madrid practically always finish up as the top 3 teams in La Liga. So ultimately, there's only one spot available. That's 4th place, at least in the first season, if you're not managing one of the top 3 teams in Spain. Ultimately, you know, it's likely there's only going to be one spot available, and that's 4th. Sevilla did it in real life this season, holding off Real Betis, but it's a very, very tough objective, as are the other 2 as well, particularly in the Champions League. Reach the final? Yeah, that's a really tough objective. So to me, personally, when I saw those objectives there, I would say this. If you start a Sevilla career mode, of course you want to keep the board happy, but to me, I would just focus on one of those 3 objectives. And to me, it's finishing the top 4. That would be my aim. I'd forget about the Copa del Rey. I'd forget about the Champions League. Just make sure you do get yourself into the top 4. Even going into the Europa League is not a disaster. Just making sure Europa League football remains in Seville for next season at the very least is, in my opinion, good enough. But again, the board would not see it that way. Now again, Sevilla team, which are 4.5-star. There's a couple of decent youngsters. There's a few aging players though as well. One thing I would recommend doing, by the way, is retraining Thomas Delaney to centre-half. You'll notice here a couple of great centre-backs with Sevilla, including Jules Koundé as well, but I would recommend retraining Delaney to centre-back. You'll notice the 29-year-old Scandinavian is a very good holding midfielder with the low-high work rates, don't get me wrong, in Sevilla's 4-3-3. Having said that, with his great range of defensive stats, and now coming into his 30s, phasing him back to centre-half, I think, is where he'd be best. Karim Rakik is the 3rd choice centre-half for Sevilla. He's not that great, to be honest, so what I would do personally with a great amount of CMs here with Sevilla is retrain Delaney to centre-half. Now, as for sales with Sevilla, I would recommend selling Gudel. She is, of course, the holding mid here. 29 years old, 79 overall. Very decent, but again, you can get better and you can get younger. And I would also sell the captain, Jesus Navas, as well. Now, it's a really tough thing to do, don't get me wrong, but he's 84 rated, making him one of the highest rated players in the team. But at 35 years old, he is going to decline rapidly in the first season. Yeah, come the end of season 1, he'll probably be around 80, 81 overall. He really will decrease so quickly. So in my opinion, as we sell Gudel to Spurs here, I would sell the skipper. You can get around 14 to 16 mil for him. We got 15 mil from RB Leipzig. And I know it's tough to sell him, but you gotta think long term with Sevilla. This team has got quite a few aging players in it. You need to start shipping them on and bringing in younger players to replace them. And if I'm going to replace Jesus Navas, this is the guy I would recommend. Now, Sevilla's starting budget is quite limited at around 34 to 35 million. This guy's one of the best budget right backs you can buy in FIFA career mode. Well, not budget right backs, but value for money right backs you can get in FIFA career mode. You will know all about him if you watch my CMs. It's Nusaya Mazraoui of Ajax. This guy is just one of the best value for money right backs you can buy in the game. He's valued at 35 mil, but you can get him for around 30 mil. We spent 32 million to get him. He's on a really cheap contract at Amsterdam, which is a really big benefit as well. You're not going to put him on an extortionate wage when you sign him. And again, this guy is the perfect stand-in for Jesus Navas. He is 12 years younger than Sevilla's captain. He's also quite quick, maybe not as rapid as Navas in his prime, but he's a great young fullback with 86 potential. So what I would personally do is put him on a defensive wide-back development plan straight away, train up his reasonably low strength and reasonably low defensive stats, and most crucially, train the train the defensive work rate up from low to high. Yeah, he's got high-low work rates. That's his biggest concern. But again, if you put him on a defensive wide-back development plan, that'll get rid of that problem for you straight away. So we converted Delaney in the end from defensive mid to centre-back. You'll see he grew a rating from 81 to 82 overall, as that's where the game would determine him to be at his best based on his in-game stats. And I would recommend a new holding mid as well. We've sold Gudelj, we've retrained Delaney to centre-half. We're going to try and sell Fernando as well. You want a long-term successor in the DM role. This guy is an amazing fit for Sevilla. Now, as we know, Steven Gerrard has put off a fantastic deal of bringing him to Villa Park for the foreseeable future. It's Boubacar Kamara of Marseille. Now, again, his contract's up coming the end of the year, so just like Mazraoui, you can get him for under the valuation of around 20 to 22 million pounds. And again, he's on a low wage, which means you're not going to pay a high weekly wage for him. We're paying 17. That's not 70. 17 grand a week for this guy on a 5-year contract. It's a bargain. He's got medium-high work rates. He's 80 rated. Defensively, he's superb. And to be fair, he could also fill in at centre-back if needed to do so with a good jumping stat. And good aggression, great defensive stats, and also as well being 6'2". But as a holding mid, that's where he'd be best in this team. The long-term successor for both Gudelj, Delaney, and Fernando as well. Yeah, I definitely recommend Kamara. And again, you can get him for under the valuation. And just like Mazraoui, he's got 86 potential as well. So he's going to be a really great player when he's peaking. And again, he can get better than that due to dynamic potential. So we sold one of our fringe goalkeepers, Javi Diaz, to Sturm Graz. Didn't get much money for him. You'll see with Sevilla, they've got enough goalkeepers. They don't really need him. He's out of contract at the end of the season and in his mid-20s now. You might as well sell him, as he's not going to get much better. And also found this interesting too. I had to wait a long time for the bids to come in, but eventually Fernando had some interest, including from his former team, Manchester City. Yep, Pep wants to take him back to the Etihad. We negotiated a £22.5 million deal there with Guardiola. I always find it so cool when like a former team puts in an offer for one of your players. You know, I find it really cool. But also Barca, Xavi wanted him as well, possibly as a long-term, well, not long-term successor at 33, short-term successor, I suppose. But yeah, we negotiated a £23.5 million deal, so slightly more than what Man City were going to pay. And in the end, thankfully, he decided to stay in Spain and go to Catalonia as opposed to return to the Etihad. So we got an extra mil there. So 23.5 mil for the sale of Fernando. Again, he's really good, just like Jesus Navas. You know, he's a crucial crucial first-team player in his mid-80s for overall, 83 overall, I think he is at this point right now, as he decreased the rating. But again, like since we began to save, after just a few weeks, he'd already decreased the rating after just a few in-game weeks. And that's because he's old. You know, he's 33 years old. He's coming towards the twilight of his career, coming towards the end of it. You want to shift him on straight away and look for replacements. And the replacement I would have in the midfield trio, well, after season ticket money came in, this guy is literally the perfect fit for Sevilla. You probably know all about him. He's making a real name for himself at the Stadio Mestalla. It is Carl Soler. I'm a massive fan of this guy, man. He is such a great player. He's one of those sort of jack-of-all-trades players, really, that can do anything. And whilst he's probably better going forward, he's not terrible in his range of defensive stats either. Now, he's valued at around 35 mil at the start of the game. He grew a rating, though, in the first few weeks of this save here, up to 82 overall. He's 24 years old, so incredibly young as well. You will have to spend a bit over the odds to get him. We had to spend 43 mil plus a massive sell-on clause as well. Without that 20% sell-on clause, I would have to spend about £50 million to get him. Didn't have the money, so thankfully the sell-on clause reduced the transfer fee we had to pay. But Carlos Soler, again, he's just an ideal fit for Sevilla. Playing this 4-3-3, again, you've got aging midfielders in Fernando and Rakitic. You want some younger blood with energy, and this guy meets that criteria perfectly. He can play on the flank if need be, but due to his, I would say, not lack of pace, but less than electrifying pace, he's better through the middle. And again, when you look at his stats here, He is better when going forward with the good shooting stats, the great dribbling stats, and the good passing stats too. But defensively, he's not too bad. So if you want, you can operate him as a deep line playmaker, a box-to-box, a roaming playmaker. Really, the choice is yours what you want to do with Carl Saleh in that midfield trio. Personally, what I would do is have him as a box-to-box, though. Train up the defensive and attacking work rates from medium to high. So he's got high work rates, a good base stamina as well. And alongside Rakitic as your main distributor of the ball, and Kalmar as the anchor man, I think that's a really solid midfield trio. So in the end with Sevilla, we sold 4 players for just under 37.75 mil and signed 4 players for 85.5 mil. So it was a net loss of around 47.75 mil. But when you look at the 3 players coming in, 3 players we signed, 3 players coming in here, all 3 of them have 86 potential. Kamara, Saleh, and Mazraoui. They've replaced the aging senior players in this team. They are maybe not quite as good right now, but they're going to be a lot better in the future. So as per usual, we'd simulate the end of the season with Sevilla and see how we get on. Can we hit those incredibly tough objectives in Season 1? Well, as you can see, there was no European final. The board asked to get to the Champions League final. That's a little bit too ambitious in my opinion for Season 1, and unfortunately, we just missed out on 4th place. Like I mentioned at the top of today's episode here, there's only going to be one CL spot available. Barca, Real, Atletico. Maybe not always in that order, but they'll be the top 3. There's only going to be 4th available, and look at this, man. We were the 3rd top scorers or 4th top scorers in La Liga, but whilst we had a bit of goal difference record in Real Sociedad, who pipped us to 4th on the head-to-head record, they ended up qualifying for the Champions League. So we finished in 5th place. That's a Europa League spot. Sevilla wouldn't mind that, though, being the most successful team in Europa League history. And unfortunately, we did not qualify for the Champions League on head-to-head. How heartbreaking is that? In the Copa del Rey, we were knocked out in the quarter-final, so that was also considered a failure by the board as Barcelona ended up winning this. And in the Champions League, we did make it through our group as runners-up to VfL Wolfsburg, but unfortunately, we faced a group winner in Chelsea and were knocked out by 4-2 against what were the holders. So, I mean, I would consider this first season an unlucky one. Now, when you see the objectives here, okay, I can't sweep this under the rug. We failed all 3. You know, there's no doubt about it. Statistically, this is a failure of a season. But I think when you look at the draws we had in the Champions League, having to face the holders, in the Copa del Rey, having to face Atletico Madrid in the quarters, and, you know, in La Liga, only missing out on a 4th place finish on the head-to-head ruling, I think that's really unlucky, isn't it, man? Very unfortunate. The board would still consider it a failure, but all things considered, I mean, we were like one flip of the coin away from, you know, hitting at least the La Liga objective, and possibly going further in the Cup and in Europe as well. But I wouldn't call it a terrible season. You know, maybe not a great season. Certainly, no doubt about it, failing all 3 objectives, but not a terrible season. Again, we replaced those aging players, Fernando and Jesus Navas leaving, and the replacements coming in got just as good. Mazraoui grew to 85 in 1 year, growing 3 ratings. He's already now as good as Jesus Navas, and he's still over a decade younger. You know, Kamara came in, grew 2 ratings to 82 overall, and in his early 20s, he's still got a long way to go. And as for Carlos Saleh, he got to 85 overall himself. Solid first season, growing 3 ratings, and at 25, he's still going to grow to possibly even 3 more ratings as well. So he's already as good as Fernando, and he's only going to get better as well. So yeah, the first season was severe in my opinion. I would ignore the board's objectives. Yes, you want to make sure you hit at least one of them to make sure you keep your job for the following season, but don't pay too much attention to the far-fetched objective of reaching the Champions League final. That's a very tough objective in Season 1 for a 4.5-star team. The first year, in my opinion, is just about shipping on a couple of aging players, bringing in some good young talent, and setting yourself up for the years to come when you want to challenge Barca, Real and Atletico for those La Liga titles. But if you are looking for a challenge, a great team in a beautiful city of Seville with a real stadium and lovely kits as well, this is an awesome side to use for a FIFA career mode in Spain. But that will end today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys. Big fan you for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. If you have, then please drop a like. Much love to you all. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.